Welcome to the Digital Amateur Television Experimenters Night. This is VK7OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania. Amateur radio is a worldwide hobby that has many different aspects. Digital television is just one of the many modes and areas that are covered. Maybe you're interested in becoming involved in the DATV Experimenters Nights. You realise that you do not have to be a radio amateur or need any ATV equipment to participate anywhere in the world. Also participate on the night by coming up to the Queen's Domain club rooms. Yes, right on top of the Queen's Domain in the heritage-listed Coast Wireless Station. You never know, we might get you in front of the camera or behind doing one of the many roles during the night. We get underway with our program on a Wednesday night from 7:30pm local time. We'll see you soon. This is VK7 OTC.
Okay, this is VK7 OTC, the club station of the Radio and Electronics Association of Southern Tasmania, with our digital amateur television experimenters nights, working from the shack number 7, Shack Tours Unlimited. And I have Paul VK7FPCL in the green room, so he's eagerly waiting for the interview. But I'll just remind people, first off, you can call in on a range of ways. The first one is the YouTube chat channel, which you can get through the Reast website, and there's some people already on there. There's Murray and Richard and Warren and Scott. So hello to all those people who are already on the streaming channel. So thank you for being there. So you can put your questions forward via the chat channel. You can also come in via repeater 2. I'm listening on repeater 2, and I'm also listening on 3807 talk group 3807 on DMR. So they're the ways you can actually get some questions to Paul and myself, and I'll be monitoring the chat channel as we go through. So thank you for the comments that have been flowing through and the suggestions. Certainly the suggestions we're taking on board, and we're trying to implement quite a few of them. But keep them coming, please keep them coming. So with no further ado, what I will do is I will bring Paul into the studio from the green room. Good evening, Paul.
Hello, Justin, and everyone else listening. Thanks.
How's your week been?
Pretty good. The school's getting ready for students to come back, so that'll be a bit of a shock to the system. People don't know I work at Friends School, so we've been all hands on deck there with teachers kind of doing distance learning from their classrooms.
Okay.
And just been trying to get some projects done, but come the 25th, our primary and our year 11 and 12 will be coming back, and the first, my area, high school, starts getting flooded with little bug machines touching all the horizontal surfaces. So I'll have to be careful.
Oh, very good, very good. So you would have had an absolute flurry of activity, I assume, when everybody went home and suddenly everything had to be done online, I assume.
No. Well, sorry, I take that back. Somebody did. I was in the U.S. at the time.
Ah, yes. Yes.
So I missed all that. I didn't start back to work until the 1st of April. And so all the ramp up to COVID, distance learning and distance working and work from home, I missed out on. So I had to play a bit of catch up on that.
Okay. All right. Well, the first thing, Paul, is thank you very much for being our interviewee tonight. I'm looking forward to what you've got to say. So we might get into it. Just probably, Paul, a little bit of history about yourself and where you've come from, because obviously your accent says that you're not from Australia originally, but you've landed in Australia. So a little bit of history and a little bit about yourself and your work life and family and whatever you'd like to throw in there. So I'll throw it over to you.
Okay. Well, I was born humble in a log cabin. No.
Yeah, right.
I was born in Southern California and grew up there, and pretty normal for Southern California. You know, I lived in the city.
Yep.
And just had that normal urban kind of upbringing.
Listen to the Beach Boys.
I guess. Sorry.
Listen to the Beach Boys.
I don't go that far back to actually. Oh wow! You want some daggy inside dope? My very first album that I ever bought with my own money, or maybe asked for, or whatever, was Jim Neighbors, "Born Free." So there you go. You guys can really have a fun time with that one.
Oh my God!
I redeemed myself later on with "Let It Be," I think.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, I was inquisitive and interested in things. I think I mentioned in some stuff that I wrote to you. I did manage in my early teens to build a crystal radio set and a metal detector, and I guess I always had an interest in technical things,
yep.
Taking things apart and stuff like that. But I ended up moving around a lot after about the age of 13 or 14, and so didn't really have any place to settle down in that. But
Okay.
my mother fortunately worked for a lot of very interesting places, and
Definitely.
this might be jumping the gun a little bit, but it happened very early on. Because if you were going to ask about my exposure and knowing about amateur radio a little bit later on, I did know my mother had some friends who were named the Von Rooses, ROOS.
Okay.
I was quite really amazed to find this when I looked it up, because I had always said that he had something to do with developing the re-entry heat shields on the Apollo space re-entry vehicles.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I think I might have been wrong. He might have, as I found out, been more in line with developing some of their solar panels.
Okay.
My mother at the time worked for Jet Propulsion Laboratory,
Wow.
and so this fellow by the name of Oldwig von Roos, we were visiting at his house having dinner one night. This is one of the earliest memories I have. I probably was 7 or 8, and he wanted to teach me how to play chess.
Okay.
And I guess I didn't really take to that so well. So he took me in the other office and showed me a damn radio setup. And that was I just remember this amazing machine sitting there with dials and a microphone and stuff like that, and wondering why I didn't hear any music, I guess. But I found later on, as I might have mentioned, that he had a patent and holds a patent for a method and apparatus for measuring minority carrier lifetimes and bulk diffusion length in PN junction solar cells.
Well, there you go.
Back in the 70s. So I suppose what little seed you might have planted then took a while to grow, but it did.
He's probably making a fortune now with all the solar panels that are around.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, I think his level of research might have been more for scientific and space exploration. I can only imagine.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I lived in a few places. I lived at a Marine Corps base in Southern California. I lived in the bayous of Louisiana in a motorhome. I guess you could say it might have been trailer trash at one point. Trailer park boys. I got some big glasses. I lived on an island in the British West Indies.
Okay.
For a year, an island called Grand Turk, and they had a British submarine base at one end.
Yep.
And a U.S. Navy base at the other. It was only 7 miles long.
Yep.
By 3 miles wide. In the middle, they had a telecommunications station that was responsible for relaying communications, or one of the places responsible for relaying communications from space flights.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
So that was in the early 70s. And I was there in 78, 79.
Okay. Okay.
And then after that, I came back to the U.S. and then shortly after that joined the Navy.
Yeah. Okay. So what was your role in the Navy, in the U.S. Navy?
I was interested in computers, and so I went into my stepdad at the time was a corpsman, so a medic.
Yep.
And so he got me interested in the U.S. Navy, and it's another funny thing. I was so proud that I had joined the service. My grandfather had always said, he was a formative factor in my life. He'd always said, "You need join the military, join the military."
Yep.
And so when I did, I was so proud. I told him, I'm in the Navy. He goes, "Oh, great." I says, "I'm going to boot camp such and such." And he says, "Oh, what are you getting out as? What are you doing?" And I told him that I was just going to be a fire control technician, and I would get. I meant an officer. You know, you're supposed to have gone to the academy. So that was the first of several mistakes in the service. But I was a fire control technician. A fire control technician is supposed to be able to manage the gunfire control equipment.
Yeah.
It calculates the ballistics and fire control problem.
Yep. Okay.
So shell size, powder weight,
yep.
roll, pitch, all that to hit a target. Well, of course, when I went into the recruiter, I said I wanted to be in computers, and in 1979, there weren't really computers that I think I was dreaming of.
Yes.
And he had some billets to fill, and of course, fire control technicians do maintain and use computers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was.
And servos.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what sort of computers are they? Are they mechanical? Yeah. Are they?
So they were using DC motors as adders, subtractors, multipliers, and dividers.
Yep. Yep.
So you have this huge panel of dials, and you would, from a list of gunfire control. And I remember I didn't really do much with it, so I can't really tell you a lot about it. You put in your gunfire control problem, and you'd hit a switch, and all the synchros and servos would whir and buzz, and you'd go to the readout dials, and that would be part of your problem.
Yep.
solved, and you write that down, and you do it again. But in a prime example of military intelligence,
the misnomer.
the U.S. Navy sent me to a ship with no guns. Oh, you're sipping coffee. Sorry, didn't want you to spray your equipment. Sent me to a ship with no, and they had 50 cows.
Yeah. Okay.
They had,
Yeah.
Border repel.
Yep.
That's about it. And so I had to go on to other ships when we were in dock, when we were in port, to actually make rank, to do my my assignments to make rank.
Yep. Okay.
So on the ship as a fire control technician, I found myself after a while just cleaning, taking, doing really stupid stuff. So I made an arrangement with a different chief petty officer in what they call the motor rewind shop.
Okay.
Now the motor rewind shop did just that, rewound motors.
Yep.
But they were also the interior communications and liquid level detectors, internal sensors. Now, you are talking about a ship that was built in 1941.
Yep.
And you are talking about 1980. So, really what I should have been was an EP, an electronics technician.
Yep.
And that would have been proper electronics, radios, communications, things like that. Although, I don't really think I would have done that, but all the same, I can show you a picture at some point of me working on what they call an interior communications box, and basically it's a point-to-point intercom system. So you throw a switch, and it would connect you to some place.
Okay.
Also, and I got interested in that, and they let me have my head with that for a while. So I would do board level stuff on there.
Yeah. Okay.
Pretty basic troubleshooting. All surface, not surface mount, through old things with your old roundies and your old dog bones and waxies and all that in there. And so I would, when something went wrong, I would troubleshoot that best I could, and they let me have my head with that. And I did some digital electronics.
Ooh. Okay. Yep.
In the service, and yeah, I mean that's where I got my first introduction to electronics, and it's long drinks between my stints in electronics too. So and from there, the ship led me to Tasmania.
Ah, yes. Okay. And what's the linkage to Tasmania, Paul?
The ship. I was due to come out.
Yep.
Of the service, and I heard that we were going to might be going to Australia.
Okay.
And so I said, I'll sign up. I'll extend my service for one tour.
Yep.
Another 9 months, and we went to. I'm trying to remember which one it was, but we went to Hawaii, the Philippines, Subic Bay, Yokosuka, Japan, or if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. We went to Diego Garcia, and we floated off of somewhere in the United Arab Emirates.
Okay.
Or thereabouts, just at the beginning of, I guess, the first Gulf War.
Yep.
That was in the early 80s.
Yep.
And then and that was really quite interesting because if you're out to sea for more than 90 days, you get a beer. And
wow.
Because the American service is dry, of course.
Yep.
And it isn't just any beer, Justin. It's formaldehyde spiked beer.
Oh, good one.
And when you go out to the what they call the fantail, the ship. The master at arms reaches, gets your ID and reaches in and pulls out. You got 2 beers actually. Pulls out your beers, and pops them in front of you, and hands them to you, and off you go. But I had made arrangements because I thought, "Can I have a hot beer, 2 beers, so what?" So that day, I put one of my beers at my feet, the other beer in my hand, and then a friend of mine that I knew walked up. I walked away, and then my shoelaces are untied, and picked up the beer. And then I put that beer down to clap at the band that was playing, and then my other friend walked up, and he picked up that beer, and I walked away. I made $50 that day.
I love it.
So then we had a little bit of Perth, but they decided it was too far, and we went to Tassie instead. Now, the ship I was on was a non-combatant ship.
Yep.
Obviously, since it didn't have guns for an FT.
Yep.
I mean, it did at one point. It had been removed.
Yep.
So we pulled into port here, but I think we had a bit of trouble because we were a resupply ship as well. We had enough fuel to circumnavigate the globe.
Yep.
And it carried armaments. It had a machine shop. It had a woodworking shop. It could actually make a small, like for a destroyer, a prop.
Yeah. Okay.
So in their foundry, they had foundry. They could make a prop, machine it down, balance it, and then they had the underwater divers on board.
Yep.
That could take it down and install it. So it was a very interesting ship.
That's pretty impressive.
So we pulled in here, and the thing is that because it was an armament ship, we had some problems for a while. We were stood off in the Derwent.
Yep.
Because they were concerned about nuclear weapons. Because we of course we can neither confirm nor deny.
Correct.
The presence of nuclear weapons aboard our ship. But we did end up pulling up in the Hobart port. And shortly thereafter, I'd say about 24 hours after, someone came on board the ship to do a tour, and I was asked out for a tour. And 36 hours, she and I decided we were going to get married. And 6 months after that, we were engaged. And a year after that, we were married. And 5 years after, well, then I came down here in '85 to get married. And so spent some time back in the U.S. and came out here in '90.
There you go.
Or late '90.
I love it. So
He's going to be back on track the radio.
yeah. Well, I was just going to bring you back to you said you went for one last tour of duty with the Navy, and then you obviously then came out of the Navy. What was the I think it started to become a little bit more electronics sort of focused. Take us through that sort of era?
Yeah. When I got out of the Navy, I went back to the U.S. and I looked around for work. And because my mother had worked for my mother was employee number 4 of a company called AeroVironment Incorporated.
Right.
And AeroVironment now is known more for its drones.
Okay.
And it makes, I don't know if anybody's seen on the internet a while back, maybe now, a couple of years, really small hummingbird type drone.
Okay.
Proper hummingbird looking drone buzzing around. We aren't talking about, we're talking actually, I think, wings.
Okay.
And AeroVironment now make weaponized drones, and they've really gone into that. But back in the day, when my mother was there, she was, like I said, employee number 4. The founder of that company, by the name of Dr. Paul McCready, and he was famous for the first man-powered flight across the English Channel, a device called the Gossamer Condor. So,
I remember that.
Yep.
Yep.
And the company did a variety of other things. They did the Sun Racer Challenge. You remember that?
Yep.
So they did the Sun Racer, and that was that won that. They did one of the first electric cars called the GM Impact.
Okay.
And they also did a thing called, it was a flying replica of the Quetzalcoatl northropi,
Okay.
which is a pterodactyl-like bird,
Yeah. Okay.
a pterodactyl-like dinosaur. And they made a flying replica of that. And then one project that I worked on, which was towards the end of my career there, called the Pointer Project. It was a man-packable reconnaissance glider, raw-moving system, and it used an off-the-shelf camera, and I was just an assembly line person for that. The wings came off. It had a TV screen in one pack, the rest of the plane in the other pack, and those bits came out, and the soldier launched it. It had on the front, run by big lithium batteries.
Yep.
And I remember the people that were assembling those, they would spot weld the tabs. They actually had the batteries.
Yep.
And they always had 2 buckets of sand by them. Because if something went wrong, the batteries went into one half bucket, and the other half bucket went over that, and then it got run out to the
Outside. Yep.
But I was fortunate, and I guess my mother having worked there, I did get a job there as a environmental studies field technician.
Okay.
I didn't do much in the way of electronics, but it gave me a lot of pretty good MacGyvering experience, because a lot of the stuff that these guys did is somebody would have an idea is, okay, we need to do some high volume particulate sampling.
Yep.
And we need to use 2.5 millimeter Teflon filter samples, and it needs to be hooked up to a 10 micron particulate sampling pack, and those need to be sampled at particular times.
Okay.
And so someone would figure out how to put this contraption together, and it looked like it looked like, well, what's the Lovecraft beast? You know, J.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Anyway, it had a head on top of it, and all these tubes coming off of it.
Very cyberpunk. Yeah.
Well, yes. Anyway, and they were all timed. So those kinds of things.
Okay.
Anemometers, airspeed, wind direction, wind speed, temperature. So I would go out and knock the instruments up to the site, and I would calibrate ozone monitors. But a lot of these you needed certain gases to flow through when you calibrated them.
Yep.
So flow rates, and there was calibration rates, and like I said, not much in the way of electronics, more in the way of instrumentation setup and calibration.
Installation. Yeah.
It was interesting.
Yep.
It was very interesting, and had a lot of good times there. One fellow that I worked with there eventually was he was the fellow who designed the software that did all the electronics and temperature monitoring inside the Sun Racer.
Okay.
And he did this all in Mac.
Yeah. Okay.
And, he He also did this for an aircraft called the Helios, which was one of the very first solar-powered, high-stratosphere, unmanned, long-flight sampling planes. You might remember it. It's a wing with that bowed in the air like this. And it had lots of props on it.
Yeah.
Solar-powered props.
Yep.
And,
huge thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It crashed.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
That's what I got some pictures of the ship and and some really daggy pictures of myself and of the Helios aircraft. I have to share them. They might go on though.
No, that's all right. So sometime in here, I think you took some time off and went to uni and actually studied electronics. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yeah. I did. I went to uni for about a year. I did some mathematics. I did study in digital logic and some mathematics or some solid-state electronics.
Yep.
Things like that. It was all fairly level stuff, and I didn't complete it. We were getting close to contemplating coming back to Tasmania.
Okay.
And so I needed to get back to work.
Yep.
So I didn't complete that, and it was a bit of a disappointment that in those days Tas Uni was a little bit less flexible with accepting credits. And so I rocked up here, and they wouldn't accept any of my previous. They wouldn't accept night classes, and they wouldn't accept any part-time classes in engineering or electrical studies at the time. So jumping the gun here a bit, but just went on to find other work.
That was the early '90s, Paul. I suspect if you were to try and do it again now, they'd receive you with open arms. But anyway, that's another story.
That's good news. No, that's good. That's good news. Yeah.
So you that then brings you to Tasmania. So about when was that? That was early '90s, I assume, from what you said.
I arrived in Tasmania late December. No, before Christmas, middle December 1990.
Okay.
And fortunately, my wife of then's father was an architect here in Tassie.
All right.
And he had a place where we could stay, which was good.
Okay.
Until we could get our feet. But I spent about 6 months looking for work. And I don't recall having looked at these places that I'm going to mention.
Yep.
But listening to Warren the other week,
yeah,
I don't know why I didn't knock on Pyro's door. Because my background, what I did was go to the Department of the Environment, because I thought, Tassie, clean place. I come from the big smoke. I mean, I guess it was a bit egotistical to think that I had, something above and beyond to bring to Tasmania, because it is a big world and people do read, but what I found was that it was a bureaucracy with internal managers, and those were the positions that they were looking for.
Yeah.
And the flight technicians was Farmer Jones taking the wet thermometer readings on his property in far north or whatever. So that was the level of technical, involvement from the level that I could get in then. So I remember listening to Warren going, I should be knocking on CSIRO's door. So
hindsight's a wonderful thing. Yes. Hindsight's a wonderful thing.
It is. It's 2020. I hope not this kind of 2020. Anyway, so so I ended up rummaging around town, going out to Techno Park, a few things like that, and believe it or not, knocking on doors. And I ended up running into an American that some people might know in management technology by the name of Harvey Arnold.
Yep.
You knew exactly where I was going. Harvey Arnold, right?
Everyone knows Harvey.
And so Harvey introduced me to, or got me an interview with a fellow by the name of Scott Brownell.
Yep.
Another guy by the name of Stupid Masters.
Yep.
So well, that's great. We talked about this before, you and I. So Stupid Masters and Scott Brownell owned technology on the corner of Brisbane and Elizabeth Street.
Yep.
And they were a Mac shop, and that's where I met Stephen. VK7, is it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And Steve and I worked up in the tech shop there for a number of years. I don't know if he was. I think he branched off when Management Technology created Mantech PC.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but Steve did all the IBM and high-level IBM and corporate backup stuff.
Okay.
And I was pretty much a Mac technician there. Yeah.
Cool.
And did go on to be the help desk manager for a little bit.
Okay. So that leads. You then gave us a bit of an idea. You then moved to Friends School and have been there for a while. So what the $64,000 question, Paul, is what was the spark that got you sort of thinking, oh, amateur radio or extending my electronics knowledge to fun and bizarre things? So what was the spark there?
Well, I've always been interested in electronics in one way or another. So, for example, many years ago, if any of you remember this, I built this in the late 90s.
Woohoo! Yep.
So this is the EA power supply. So I have been interested in electronics for quite some time.
Yep.
And amateur radio was never really, and should have been. And I ignored some advice I think I mentioned to you, which was I made mention to one hotshot electronics engineer at a place where I worked in California, AeroVironment, that I was really enjoying studies at university in digital electronics and logic, digital logic. And he goes, well, of course, you'd like that. It's easy.
Okay.
So I didn't really get a lot of, how should I say, Reast clubhouse encouragement or trickier business encouragement from those people. But one thing he said to me was a bit prophetic is if you want to learn electronics, into radio.
Yeah. Okay.
And one of the things I did buy and carry over from the U.S. to here was an ARRL.
Excellent.
But I never went anywhere with it. I don't know why. I think I was too enamored with Tasmania and took up fly fishing.
Yeah. Okay.
So and I was interested in computers, so I was diving into that.
Yep.
And my chops as a Mac tech and getting certified as a Mac tech, and all those things took up the first 9 years of my life here. So when I joined the Friends School, way back in the early days of, schools had flat networks.
Yep.
And so it was easy for me to deal with. And so I jumped into to the Friends School as the network manager.
Yep.
But as time progressed, we saw the obvious need to get away from flat networks, and as we all know, a lot of the guys out there, Murray and Ben, and everybody going, of course. Things started progressing beyond my ability to be a manager in charge of 4 people and an $800,000 to $1 million budget and all that kind of stuff, and reinvent myself as a Cisco certified, a network engineer.
Yeah. Yep.
So I had to make a choice. Either I worked myself to the bottom, or I worked hard to get the school to look for a proper Cisco certified engineer.
Yeah. Yep.
And whilst they didn't exactly do that, brought somebody up in the ranks, and that person, who a lot of people might know, is the fellow by the name of Jason.
Yes.
Who is an absolute gun, as everybody should know. So when Jason started really pedaling my heart in the network stuff, I found that my workload was, continually, as far as the technical side of things,
yep.
Big picture, maybe, MacGyvering, knowing the building, knowing where everything is, that kind of stuff was there, but there wasn't much to synapses in the electronics area firing.
Yeah. Okay.
So one day, about like I said, I'd always been interested in electronics, but it was one of those things where, as you see around now, all of this, my kingdom of dirt, has sprung up since I got involved in radio.
Okay.
So one day I was thinking, what can I do? I think there really need some handheld radios for when I fish, so I can keep my partner and myself in communication. And then I thought, well, that's pretty pedestrian. I got to be able to spend more money than this.
I love it. Yep.
I looked at things and thought, no, I don't really want to spend. So it was this.
Ah, that looks like a Baofeng to me. Yep.
That's right. And then I realized even more. You have to have a license.
Yep.
And then I thought, well, okay, look, I'll order this, and I'll order an SD, one of those little up-converted ones.
Yep.
Because that'll, I'll be able to listen to some American radio stuff, and I'll be able to do something with SDR, and then it looks interesting, and it's cheap, and it's toy, and it's electronics. And then I decided I might as well maybe I'll get my license.
Yeah.
And I guess I just kind of fell into it. But as I fell into it, all these little things started coming out, the things that I could do, and that electronics started to peak again. And then I started to get really excited about it because it was engendering that interest again, and it helped me think. There was more technical aspects to things. It was feeding an interest in an area that I've probably held for most of my life, but just for some reason had never grasped it. I did, like you say, hindsight is fantastic, and I should have grabbed it back in the early 90s. But It's amazing the internet and the information availability of information we have now for somebody to be interested in something. It's just natural that if you're interested in something, the first thing you do is go out on the net and find out where your interest
Spot on.
is celebrated. Whereas back in the 90s, if I wanted to find out Reast was here in the 90s, so if I wanted to find that out, always driven by the shack, and going, oh, I wonder what that is. That never made the connection, but I'm here now and have to support.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good, Paul. So I mean, I'm interested in your views about coming in. What I'd call fresh, from the point of view of a lot of us came into the hobby because we had a relative or a father or mother or somebody or a sister or brother or whatever who was into amateur radio, but from your perspective, you have a very technical sort of background and certainly an interest in there, but you came into the sort of the foundation license fairly late in the piece, and I'm just interested in your sort of views on the foundation license. The limits it gives you, the issues you've had with the license and getting the license or that sort of thing. I just I'll throw that question in and see where we go.
Sure. Look, I mean, I'm not a naturally academic person, putting my mind to things. For work for the academic, but so doing the foundation test, I mean, for me it was like, okay, I'm putting myself up for an unknown experience, and you don't, also being an American, being not being a native person, you kind of stand out, and I don't like to think that, would you? I put myself out there. So coming into the foundation license, I mean, and into amateur radio, the first thing I can say is that, and this isn't the Blarney smoke, because I'm here on a Reast interview and podcast, but the welcoming nature of the members of the Reast it's a bit daunting for an individual, for anyone in any club, to walk with a bunch of people who have an established relationship, established rhythm, established cliques, if you like. People come in and they gravitate those you always talk to, and you just stand around and kind of go, oh, where am I going to find my feet?
Yeah.
Milieu of dozens of different conversations and what you do. So coming in late to the peak, I suppose there's a benefit in that. Sure, and I knew my mind that I wanted, so I persevered. A young person coming, it depends on their personality. But I could see how it would be tough. I've seen some people come in to the club when I've been there, and been there a couple of times, and then you don't see them there, and maybe I was a bit like that. To think of it, you say to yourself on that Wednesday night, do I go there and put myself out and persevere with it, or just give it a miss this way?
Yeah.
But I do think that if that extra effort is made, you definitely gain benefits of the fellowship of the club. I highly regard the friendships and the things that I've made there over the years. As far as foundation licensing and whether or not not whether or not, but I find it sufficient. Well, sure, every is sufficient. What I found not necessarily frustrating, because it's also encouraging, is there aren't many foundation members at my place in the journey at Reast.
Okay.
So you might have a number of foundation members, but they've been a foundation member for 15 years.
Yeah.
Because that's where they're comfortable at.
Yeah.
That's what they want, you know.
Yep.
The frequencies and power limits, they're fine with.
Yep.
They're either a SOTA person or a QRPDXer or something like that, and they're happy with that because maybe that's their niche, in the sense that I want to try milliwatt DXing.
Yeah.
You know, and if that's what they want to do, that's fantastic. And a foundation license is all they need to do. But what I found is, you know, you have people, well, like, what is it? You're coming up?
Yep.
All right? I can't do anything with that. Or on a comp day or something like that, where people are sitting here and they're going from 40 to 80 to 2 to 70 to 40 to 80 to 2 to sorry, but they're on 6 and they're on that, and you jump over on that. So you hear people talking about that, and you know, I'll tell you right now, I've just bought and paid for my radio electronics school drills and testing.
Yep.
For my standard. So I'm currently in the process of studying for my standard.
Fantastic.
And that's because, might I say, of not only Reast, but people like Richard and Murray.
Yep. Okay.
Because they're interesting, fun, and dynamic people. They're enthusiastic and encouraging. I want to be part of the stuff that they're part of. Now that isn't following somebody blindly. That is a follower. That's being somebody who wants to be involved in somebody else's enthusiasm. And I think those two fellows, and a lot of the people at Reast, espouse that. But you have to be able to play in that.
Yep. Okay. That infectious enthusiasm, I think, is a good way of describing that. So I just there's a few things that come up on the chat channel, Paul. One is from Steve 700, just confirming. He said yes. It branched off the PC business and separated from the Apple business. So he's just that was a little while ago, but he's just confirming that. And also Scott Evans, VK7HSE, said my first ever kit build was a Dick Smith Electronics VK Power Master, which was a 13.8 volt 20 amp power supply. I have built similar power supplies, definitely. In fact, the main power supply in the shack's a Power Master design. So know what you're talking about there. Thanks, Scott. It was about June 1995. So there you go. And
nice.
So okay. So it's that sort of infectious enthusiasm that goes on within the club, and it's great to hear that you're thinking of you are studying for your standard, and that's always been what we've tried to promote, I suppose. Is the foundation is exactly that. It's a foundation entry into amateur radio, and it was specifically designed with limited frequencies, low power, and some limited modes that give you that feel and that entry, and then hopefully you get enthused enough to go on to the standard and then on to the advanced. So it's good to hear that's the sort of pathway. Sorry.
I do think that new regulations in the expansion of the abilities for the foundation license had to be done, especially in light of DMR.
Yep.
Especially in light of building kits. I mean, you can't treat individuals, especially if they have their heads screwed on straight,
Yep.
like they did in valve days, where you have hundreds of volts running through equipment.
Yep.
And now, people can build kits that, and I have one of them that require like the micro, that requires very little.
Yep.
And it's a QRP unit.
Yep.
And makes no sense to not allow a foundation to Lego build their own radio.
Yeah.
And
I agree.
just imagine an individual being able to that's cheap. I would have, the amount of times in the beginning I was in my hands thinking, how am I going to get a radio? And there were some very generous people. You might remember his name, that FT sitting in the back of in the transition room. Is that VK7AR?
Yep. Harry?
Yeah. So VK7ZAR was, and I
Bizarre.
don't know his name, very, very generous
Alan.
in loaning that to me, and I was forever grateful to him for that. As a matter of fact, this came with it as well.
Yep. Lovely.
And so that got me started as my my first radio. But I was building an MDT monobander.
Yep.
Before I could even use it, because that's what I like doing. I like building kits. So I think that the expansion of the foundation was a long time coming, I guess, for the little time that I've been in to be able to say that.
Yep.
And will do great things for people. I think that it's interesting. There's still those individuals out there who really only want their license, 70 centimeters.
Yep.
So that they can rag chew with their good buddies.
Yeah. And that's fine as well. That's Scott just mentioned. It's a similar thing to the H call with its introduction. It was an introduction type license, limited to sections of the 2 and 70 centimetre bands, but with the legislative changes, it opened it up to become the standard, which gave you a selection of the HF bands, etc. So mirror to the foundation call. You're spot on, Scott. Well and truly. So yeah, there's been a couple of these sort of schemes go on throughout the ages to try and get more people into the hobby, and certainly the foundation license. There was I think I mentioned in our discussion before this interview. There was an absolute tsunami of people literally come into the hobby when the foundation license was first put out there. There was a huge peak, and I know we were going through foundation license courses. Our first probably year of foundation courses, there would have been a full class of students. And I mean a full class in the club rooms behind me. There wasn't any room around the tables, so yeah, it was certainly a popular introduction. So yeah.
Well, I mean, you're peaks and troughs, and I don't know. I guess there's been a lot of conversation and discussion around why amateur radio, new entries was lagging a bit. And I don't know. I mean, I think you made mention in either one of your other interviews or something that there has been a minor resurgence.
Yep.
with the the COVID.
COVID, yeah.
Situation?
It was in the broadcast. The ARRL have experienced a 700% increase, and the RSGB have seen a 300% increase.
Amazing.
So now I don't know. I'll probably get hate mail from this, but I don't know what percentage of those are the preppers out there. But who cares who it is? It's just a resurgence, and people have seen that it's a hobby that has flourished in isolation. Has well and truly flourished in isolation. So, in fact, I find it amazing when I walk into the shack working from home, and I have the radios on, and there is a whole lot more activity on 23 centimetres. There's a whole lot more activity on HF. It doesn't matter where I go on HF, there just seems to be a station there whereas before I probably would have had to have tuned around for a fair while before I actually saw somebody. And there seems to be a lot of yes, Murray, the preppers. So thank you. Comment on the chat channel. But the thing about it is, if that gets somebody with a radio and able to use the radio, this is one of the key things. Able to use the radio in an emergency communication setting, that's got to be a good thing, because one of the things which keeps being put out there all the time around amateur radio is that whole emergency communications. You know, when the cell towers power supplies go flat because of the fire that's around the cell tower or whatever else, and we run out of battery power, and we suddenly find that all this wonderful communication that we're all used to falls flat. You know, amateur radio comes to the rescue, which I get a little bit tired of that, because in Wyson circles that's the case, and they do exercises to prove and to test that capability. But the average amateur, the average amateur, unless they're sort of
repeaters are subject to the same duties that cell towers.
Spot on, well and truly. So we have to be a little bit careful there. But hey, if COVID-19, if there's a silver lining to COVID-19, I haven't quite found it yet, but one of them I'm thinking about is amateur radio, the resurgence in amateur radio. So yeah.
Well, there is a silver lining. Trump's taking hydroxy.
Yeah. So Paul, what we might do is, would you like to? You've sort of shown us a few things around the shack. Give us a bit of a shack tour. Is that?
I'm a little bit of a bowerbird, and so I've got a few here. I'll take you out for a tour.
Cool.
Tell me if I'm turning it around. So tell me if I'm on or off or whatever. So
look at this.
Up there that's a little bit of my shelf queen.
Cool.
If you like. That's from Murray. Not Murray. Larry. For the power, for the amplifier in it, the power supply in it, and then this I thought I was going to really get into going back to the good old days, and unfortunately it was up on the northern East Coast, and it's as green as a new sailor on the inside.
Wow. Okay.
So it's all covered in sea salt and whatnot. So it doesn't work. I did make the mistake of turning it on, and we had a big pop. So sitting up there looking quite nice.
It's a restoration project, Paul.
It is, but I have pictures of the inside. I think you've seen them.
Yeah.
This was from the shack. It's a signal generator that. Whoops, sorry.
Yeah.
Here it is.
It's a leader. I love it.
Yeah.
I had one of those.
and this was from the shack.
Yep.
It was a $100 otoscope.
Cool.
And then I think, let's see if I can do this. What's behind there is another study.
Okay.
You can see it. That one I got from the school.
Okay.
This is when I was rummaging around. This was from the school. That I was going to turn into a in-circuit. Whoops, there you go. Into an in-circuit component tester, kind of like an octopus rig.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
And so there's plans for turning this into a fairly rigid edge piece of equipment.
Yeah.
From a guy by the name of Mr. Carlson's lab.
Yep. Yes.
With
Know it well.
And let's see. So what else have we got? So the first thing I did was get out the place with, let's see, with lots of racks and whatnot.
Lovely.
And it's interesting. This bench here, this table, was my first desk from school. So I managed to grab that when they got rid of that, and so I built some shelving on top of that. And you got to have a lot of monitors.
Of course.
And then, oops, there you go. You guys see this. And more racks and shelving and bits and pieces. Here's Ron's lovely
very
Surface
nice.
Pro boxes.
Yes. I have
And
lots
then,
of them too.
So as far as projects go, that's the MDT.
Yep. Okay.
Up, can you see it?
Yeah.
Glasses off. There's the MDT. I just needed to get back on that and retune it.
Yep.
And that's not much going on with that. I haven't been very good with my projects, but that's the MicroBitX.
Okay. Yes.
Since I got this, so I think they're like 2.5 or 3 different versions beyond that.
Yeah. The
So
development.
that's a. I was going to put a Nextion display in that.
Yep.
You can see that going on there.
Oh, very nice.
And then I kept it in this enclosure because maybe one day we can bring that into play.
Oh, okay. Now this is that's a Barrett enclosure, isn't it? Looks very or a Codan enclosure.
Kodan.
Codan. Yeah.
That's the same as the one on the shelf.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, very
And
nice.
this is another. This was brilliant.
Yep.
I got this from the club as well.
Yep.
And that's an absolutely brilliant homemade power supply.
Yep.
I've forgotten who actually made that.
That's dual rail, is it, Paul?
Oh yeah, perfect for plus minus supplies.
Yep.
And so those 2 scopes up there were replaced by this when I got the money for it.
Yep.
And of course I share this with my partner's Home Innovations, so
Okay. Cool.
lots of little things going on there. And then just more stuff.
So
I'll take you back.
So the radio that's there, what is it connected to outside in the way of antennas?
The proper radio.
Whatever you're calling a proper radio, yes.
Oh, if you meant the 991A.
Yeah. Yep. That's a proper radio. Yeah.
That that's a bit of a sad story. That's currently connected to a 10-meter dipole.
Okay.
Actually sloped, just from the way I had to run it.
Yep.
And then also a 40-meter delta loop.
Oh, okay. Wow.
That's broken
Right.
because I have it on a 12-meter telescopic mast,
Yep.
that's fairly flexible. And with the Tassie winds here, especially on the eastern shore, I had what was I using? That's right. I was using a bunch of this originally, which is that figure 8 photo wire.
Yes. Yep.
And that lasted a year. But I turned around and put in some pretty good tinned copper wire that I got from the club.
Yep.
And it's lasted 3 weeks. So
stick with what you know. Stick with what's good.
Well, I go to something better, running stuff. And so I was wondering why I was getting something here recently, and so I stuck some adapters on the end of it this afternoon and put an opener across it and it's open.
Yeah.
So there's something, it's either broken or whatever. So I was actually dealing over a multi-band capacitive tuned hybrid.
Okay.
I saw vertical.
Yep.
Enough of this, because every time I take this up and all those sections,
Yep.
I have to undo with a socket, a nut driver,
Yep.
and the wheel motor, and bring it down, and then all those clamps have to be undone and lined up, and it's kind of a pain. I don't even know. I was even researching TRVs, but I've heard good and bad things about those.
Yep.
But yeah, so those are projects there, antennas here. But I do have a good Andrews 2 and 70 up on the roof. By virtue of the kind help of Richard and Murray to get it on the roof.
Okay. Cool.
So yeah, those are. What else I've got here? This is what is it? An ICOM 45A. An old ICOM 45 is here.
Right.
That I used during the RD.
Okay. Now that's a good segue, because one of the claims to fame from your fine self is that you took out the foundation section of the Remembrance Day contest last year. So all eyes are on you this year, coming up in August, to better your score, or at least put the challenge out there to all the other foundation licensees in Tasmania and Australia to raise their game.
I'm not greedy. Firstly, luckily I've been shamed into it once. I don't know if it's going to work twice. No.
But
But I don't quite know if I'm going to do the coffee and toothpicks that I did last time.
But take us through your experience of the Remembrance Day contest, because that was your first contest, wasn't it, Paul? That was.
Yes.
Yeah.
My very first contest.
So take us through your experience of it.
Oh well, I mean, it was a bit nerve-wracking. I mean, I hadn't before then. I don't think. I hadn't. I had made some test contacts with Murray and Richard that day, I think, as my first contacts, my first QSO. But a bit nervous in the beginning. Didn't know how I was going to go, and I think I spent the first would have been at least 15 minutes. It doesn't sound like a lot, but 15, 20 minutes just listening to the cadence of the ogres.
Yep.
And
That's a good way of describing it, actually, Paul.
Yeah. Murray and Richard had clued me in on. Sorry, I can't recall at the moment what they called it, but it was kind of like something other than the term band hopping.
Yeah.
He did.
Yep. The band dance.
Sorry.
The band dance.
Band dance. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I was all set up. I had plenty of water and snacks and books and things like that, and I got the logging software all figured out. It worked really well. At that point, what did I have? I had an FT891, which is sitting over here in a box, waiting to be sold. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I had the FT891 over here, and then I had what did I have? That's right. I had Murray's 2 meter and 70.
Yep.
And I think I had 2 radios. I borrowed a radio. It was a dual band. So I didn't have 3 radios. I didn't have a 2, a 70, and then HF. So I think I did most of my contacts on 2 and 70.
Yep. Okay.
And 1 or 2 on when things got quiet. So how was it overall? I was really encouraged by the contacts, the relaxed nature of the SOs. Once you got that down and you knew what you were doing, it was fine. I have one of the reasons why I really wanted to get this unit here is because it's a shack in the box, and I don't have to switch.
That's right.
So when I switch between modes here, the logging software will follow, and it will also log them in the proper frequency categories and things like that. Whereas before, I was working partially with the computer, partially with a piece of paper, trying to make things.
Now this is
This
is from Steve VK7FPCL in his shack.
Yeah.
He's watching the RF with the antenna directly in front of the television. So Steve.
Well, that's what we're for discussion.
Well and truly, and he's got a set-top box up there, and I tell you what, that's not a bad picture, Steve. So good stuff, excellent. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt. And Richard's here. Richard's on the chat channel, just saying he thinks you had a 7900 dual band. So
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I only just sold it last week. Amazing how we forget our old friends so quick.
Yeah, they just go and that's it. They're out of your life and somebody else's.
No, he's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. So I switched between on the 7900 and used it for some HF work.
So Paul.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Paul. From the RD experience point of view, do you think that's sort of made? No. Let me preface this with another question. How many contacts had you made before the RD?
Oh, 0.
Ah, okay. So I supplement that with this question. So do you think that the RD was a good entry point, I suppose, into contacts and contesting? Is that your sort of experience, or is there did you have another experience here? So
no, I haven't had any other experiences. Yes, the RD is a very casual. It's over a long period of time.
Yep.
You can sit down and listen and dive in whenever you want. Of course, I'm not very competitive, but it's when you have friends that you admire and they're enthusiastic about something.
And they are competitive.
And
and they are competitive.
well, look, it's interesting. I had no idea what I was going to do or could do. I just, to a certain degree, didn't want to let my friends down. I wanted to make a good showing of it because they were so enthusiastic.
Yeah.
They came out and they came out and volunteered their time to help me get set up. And I know they're both there about the built worked. It worked. And it's not guilt. I really, when you're scared of something, like you're scared of getting in the water. Once you get in, you know, the kids, they get in and they go, oh, I love this.
Yeah.
I don't know why I wasn't swimming years ago.
I got reactions from both Murray and Tricky there. So, hashtag peer pressure.
But, you know, I mean,
Very good, Russ.
It's one of those things. I mean, human beings, if they have a good nature and whatever, they see a kindness and they want to return that kindness. And that has a spurring on effect. And also, I did enjoy it as you're scared of it in the beginning, but the more you get along with it, the more you get into it, the more you realize this is kind of fun. But maybe a follow-up question might, in how many contacts people have with that sense?
Yeah, great follow-up question. And?
Well, one. I mean, maybe not necessarily because of the Sunday call-ins, but I had the radio on. I think it was last weekend. And there was somebody calling CQ, and a lot of times because I'm only on 10 watts, and I don't know whether I'm just zooming out, from some, 100-watt station someplace, but so I answered it, and it was quite good, and it was VK3UP Terry out of Ballarat.
Okay.
And we had a nice 30-minute QSO before I had to go into team, and so that was my first unsolicited, if you like, unsolicited QSO. So that was good, and I intended to do more, but things being what they are, and home life and stuff like that. But yeah, so I think the RD is a really good way of getting into contesting. And once again, it's like a bicycle. You don't ride it once; you have to ride it more than once.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, and so I'll certainly be in on the next one. And I think what happened just recently. What was our most recent call?
The field day. There was the summer field day, and then there was the Harry Angel Memorial Sprint, which happened a couple of weekends ago.
Yeah, I didn't do that.
But you put in a few contacts, I think, for the summer field day, I think. Yeah. Now, I'm interested in your thoughts, because the summer field days are very different contests to the RD. Not only from the perspective of you actually go portable, but it's also it's a different. To use your terminology, there's a different cadence to that contest. There's quite a different speed to that contest, and it can be very start and stop, lots of activity and then no activity. So yeah, and
the rules allowed base stations as well.
Yes, base stations, correct. Base stations, portable stations, and what they call rover stations, which are stations that move around grid squares. So
I just found, because of the local reach, right?
Yep.
Of a lot of stations around here, you're once again you're mostly contacting and in my power limits, you're mostly contacting local. So because of that, and there's roving people. If, for example, some of them are out on South Arm, or some of them are out someplace because they're chasing, points. So they're looking for DX contacts. I'm not going to get them here at Old Beach. So I think I had most of my contacts with Larry and Warren.
Yeah. Okay.
Because I think Warren was portable. But how did I find that cable? It was a lot slower.
Yep.
And when I made my contacts, it was with Warren and Larry, or maybe one or two other people, and didn't seem to be too fussed. I mean, the thing that worried me the most about any contact in the beginning is that I was going to get, the by the rules, anorak wearing, typical, when I say stereotypical, that would say, you are doing this QSO problem.
Yeah.
And I think that 90% of the time, depending on where you're at in the world, your exposure to numbers and the fact that there are going to be some of those people out there, but that you aren't going to encounter that kind of thing. People are going to be fairly relaxed, and from what I've read, the most times you encounter somebody like that is with a real big, hotly contested big pile up, and people want you to be accurate in and out of your QSO.
Yep.
So that they can be on to somebody else. They don't want you umming and ahhing and stuttering and trying to figure out how to make it. So they want you in, they want your number, they want you good left, and they want you out of there so that they can go on to the next one. And that's understandable.
Yep.
People argue about it.
but your strategy at the RD, which was to sit back and listen for a little while and get that feel for the way it flows, that's a fantastic strategy, especially when there's a DX station, and DX stations very often they have beams and they're pointing in particular directions, so they call for particular stations, and the best thing and the most courteous thing you can do in those sort of situations is listen. If you want to make a contact with this station, well, listen for when they're asking for your stations, and actually come back and see whether you can make a contact at that point in time. And yes, you have to be fairly accurate, and it's pretty gunfire sort of sharp sort of stuff. But you listen to how they're doing it, and that's the guide that you then use. So it's still structured in exactly the same way as a normal contact. It might be really quick fire, but it's certainly your strategy of sort of sitting back and actually listening and getting that feel is a great strategy in those sort of situations. Now,
well, and I'll have to do that again during the next contact. Unless you've been doing it for years and you make a lot of QSOs and things like that. Once again, going back on the bike and going, okay. So yeah, I mean, I really just found that most of the contacts that I could do were from people that I was familiar with. My voice gives it away a little bit, and I've never gotten mistaken for someone who's actually calling it Reast, but the people around here, it was a good experience. And you're right, that is a good strategy. But I mean, sit back and none of this is life or death. This is what I have to realize is that you're not going to be given a scarlet letter out of the village.
Correct.
If you muck up.
It's a hobby.
That's right.
Richard just put in, should we tell Paul about the plans for the winter field day ? So I think they've got plans cooked up for the winter field day, which is coming up fairly soon. And also Scott puts in a good point around never let a power restriction determine whether you should or you shouldn't. And I agree totally. One of the great talks that I always remember from Roger Harrison, VK2ZRH, who worked for the International Propagation Service, for the not International Propagation Service. What's the I stand for? Ionospheric Propagation Service. I'll get it right in a minute. He worked for them for a little while and gives some very good talks at Gibbs Tech. But one of the take-home messages I always remember is there is always an opening between one place or another. You just don't know when. So things like Whisper and a few of the other propagation modes help you with that, but you never actually know. And so it doesn't matter about power. It doesn't matter about antennas or all sorts of things. If it is open between one place or another, you'll make the contact. So there you go. So
that's very good.
Paul, I just you sort of mentioned a few times your inspirations in amateur radio, and I know you did mention a few people. The guy from the JPL Amateur Radio Club, who you mentioned early on, Oldwig von Roos.
Yes.
So he was obviously one of those inspirations. Anybody else along the way who you'd like to sort of call out as a bit of an inspiration in the amateur radio circles that you'd like to just acknowledge?
Well, I mean, so I was 8 years old. So between 1969 and 2018, I would say there was only one person. So I hate to keep harking back, but I think one of my inspirations would have to be Richard Howard, because he's enthusiastic, always doing something, always suggesting a different thing. I mean, there are about 3 or 4 different projects in my mind that spring from, 3 half-hour conversations with him at the shack that I've yet to get off on, get off running on, like satellite comms, or building an automated satellite tracking jig, or he always has something. He does his moon bounce and the satellite tracking and all those things, and his enthusiasm as well. And the same goes for Murray and his encouragement. I mean, really, if it's anything, it's really not Greek. Once again, that sounds like I'm saying, but it isn't. It's going back to Wednesday and getting ideas from people and being encouraged in what you're doing, getting ideas. That's my inspiration for radio, is being part of a group of individuals that encourages me and gives me ideas, and that I can do things, talk over with people about things, and that there's always somebody to help, to say, go to this. Ben, I should be saying as well. Sorry. Ben's been a tremendous encouragement in just as a friend. Where did we go? We went to try and do a parkside.
Yep. Okay.
Weren't very lucky that day, but Ben's been really good to me as well, encouraging me and all his antennas. He's an inspiration to me, and all the things that he's given to the club, and that I find very inspiring and appreciate his efforts.
Cool.
I'm smiling at something. Who's saying something?
Oh no, that's all right. I just sorry, Scott. I had the DMR radio sitting there next to the microphone, so that's all right. So, and I have to acknowledge your SOTA exploits as well, Paul.
Mine? Oh my God! But I'm here to tell the tale as a minor miracle of itself.
Well, yeah, you might be a little bit worse for the wear, but hey, you're here to tell the tale.
I mean, yeah. With all this sitting around with isolation and COVID and stuff like that, I keep telling myself when I have a bad day of not feeling well or a cold or a flu or getting up and doing something and going, geez, I need to exercise. By gee, you climbed Mount Dromedary, right?
Oh, I love it. All right.
It was much more pleasant going up than it was coming back. I'm sure you recall with the 15 paces and a rest, 15 paces and a rest. While you guys were tripping over, not tripping, but running over logs. You're an inspiration as well, buddy. You can do that. That's amazing.
So that's good, Paul. That is fantastic. What I might do is open it up to questions for Paul via the chat channel. I'll just do a call on R2 because DMR's in use right at the moment from up on the northwest coast from the rebroadcast. So we'll just let that go. But this is VK7OTC on repeater 2, just singing out for anybody who wants to ask any questions or make any comments on tonight's Working from the Shack with Paul VK7FPCL. Over.
If anybody asks what's my favorite
OTC VK7OO. My only comment is shame on you, Paul, for having such a tidy shack.
I held back on the comment, Steve. I must admit his construction desk was the one that got me. It's incredibly tidy. I don't think you can actually see the surface of mine right at the moment because it's got so much crap on it. But I sort of sweep it aside when I need a bit of space. But yes, very good, Steve. Over.
Yes, Justin, I thoroughly agree. It's always a challenge when you start a project, trying to find the soldering iron, screwdrivers, the wire cutters. You never find them because they're never where they're supposed to be.
I hear your pain, Steve. I hear your pain. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I'm just a question to the fact that I'm not doing much at the moment.
Oh well, it's one of those challenges that we just have to face up to. Very good indeed. Any further comments on tonight's presentation? Please go ahead.
VK7RM.
Go ahead, Ron. VK7RM, VK7OTC.
Good evening, Paul. Good evening, Justin. Very interesting presentation. The only comment I could make was that the audio from Paul was a bit choppy at times. It just made me concentrate pretty hard to pick it all up. But very interesting, and thank you.
Oh, fantastic, Ron. No problems at all. VK7RM, VK7OTC. Thanks for the comment. Yeah, I think there was a compressor or something kicking in every so often. I did move the microphone, and I think it got a little bit better Yeah, just in the middle there, we were chopping out syllables and the like. So apologies for that. So good stuff. But thank you for the comment, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Over.
Much enjoyed it, and thanks again, Paul. Cheers.
Any further comments? Please go ahead. No, nothing heard. Thank you. Thanks for those that called in on R2. We'll just try DMR 3807 talk group now. Over. And this is VK7OTC, just standing by for any comments or questions for Paul. VK7FPCL, we're now working from the Shack series. Over. And we got a comment here from Warren Nicholas. Way too tidy, Paul. Scott comment. And VK7HSE, VK7OTC. Go ahead, Scott. No. VK7HSE, VK7OTC, go ahead. No. Oh.
Well, the lag between it's real time. So it's quite real. I was only saying that you weren't actually making it out, but then I realised that the delay between origin to destination.
Roger, Scott. Yes, the if you're watching via the YouTube stream, it can be anything up to 20 to 30 seconds. So it can be quite considerable delay. So yeah, but that's the story there. Over. So we would have heard that on the stream later. So, but Scott also mentions here, I'm the opposite. If my bench has been cleaned, I can never find anything, which is correct. There's a rule about that. There's a law that follows. And Richard Howlett. And Scott's just acknowledged yes about the delay. Great night. Thanks, Paul. And send the cash later. Yeah. He'll send the cash later. So no problems at all.
For once, I'm on the receiving end.
So very good. So good stuff.
I kind of find with Shack cleanliness that I get tired of hunting for stuff. So I try and make an effort to have everything in its place and a place for everything. If I had the money, it would look like a Formula One race car pit with drawers and everything like that. But then I get a little bit too involved with making the shop look nice and not actually making it.
That's you, and that's a fine balance that you've got to strike there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it is well and truly. having just cleaned up a box of stuff which I needed bench space, so all I did was basically swoosh it off into a box, into one of those chicken feed boxes, shiploads boxes, and I thought I'll deal with that later. And that was like probably 2 years ago, and I thought I better go through that box because there's probably stuff, because I thought I'm just going to throw all that stuff out, and then I started going through it and I went, no, I'm glad I didn't do that.
I was going to say, how many parts are in there that you bought?
Ooh, lots. And stuff I was looking for, and I just went, okay.
Oh, don't you worry. Don't you worry. I've got that.
There you go.
You know, I certainly have that.
Yep. So yeah, it's and then you've got to draw the line as to do I actually pick those resistors out of this pile of stuff, or do I just ditch it?
I know. That's why I keep the whole circuit boards. You know, I start off going, I don't have a lot of money for buying parts. So I'll scavenge parts. So I've got a desoldering station, and I do stuff like that. Then you think, okay, what amount of time do you spend being Scrooge McDuck, and what amount of time do you spend actually just buying the bits and building a project?
Correct. And in fact, Richard's got a simple solution to that. Just more tools. Warren, I've been planning to tidy up too one day. Yep, it's great. One day, there's always another day. And a thank you from Warren as well. Great evening, Paul. Many thanks.
That's great.
And Scott, I do that all the time. Oh yeah. So that's great. So we might wrap it up at that, Paul. Thank you very much for your time and the interview tonight. It's been fantastic, been enlightening. We love that sharing of what goes on within a shack. I did particularly like the sharing, Paul, about the RD contest and your entry in from a foundation perspective, because I don't think we get enough of that sort of perspective to come to grips with what that's about, how we can make it better for incoming foundation licensees and all those sort of aspects. So yeah.
Well, it's been a real pleasure, and it's been a pleasure being able to give an older F calls and new F calls. You're never too old to join this hobby, never too young to join this hobby, and I think that with Reast, everybody would have a group of individuals, although things like that to help any new member get along. And it's been my pleasure. It's been a real highlight in my life, and the group of people that I hang out with. So thank you for having me on.
Cool. Thanks, Paul. That's fantastic. Now, just stay on the line for us. What I will do is just a quick promo. Our next Shack tour and interview, which is next week, is with Peter Dowd, VK7PD from up north. Now, Peter's known to a lot of people. Peter is a lifelong educator who is now retired, but also has been involved in amateur radio in VK7 for a very long time, is a microwave experimenter, is a real powerhouse in getting things started and getting things done. So Peter's our interviewee next week. So looking forward to that one. And then the week after that, and we've still got, I think we've still got Scott on the line, and we might have Clayton on the line as well. The week after that is our next monthly first Wednesday of the month whole of club virtual presentation, which is being given by Clayton and Scott on D-Star. So we had DMR last virtual gathering. This time around we've got D-Star. I know there are a lot of people out there with recently purchased 9700s, hint hint hint. I think we counted at least 6 or 7 of them in our last list that I saw going around. and the 9700 comes with D-Star built in. So, and the question was asked at our DMR session: how do I use D-Star with my new brand spanking new 9700? So, if you want to know how and why and what you've got to do, in a fortnight's time we'll have a presentation on D-Star. So that's what's coming up in the next the next fortnight. Peter Dowd next week, and then our D-Star presentation on the week after. So and Scott just commented that Clayton will be taking the lead and myself riding shotgun. So there you go. So maybe riding shotgun. I know what riding shotgun means, but riding shotgun in a D-Star sense. So you never know what those menu items down behind the door that says "Beware of the Tiger" do. So that's what we've got coming up. And Scott just mentioned I better download the 9700 manual. Yes. So we'll leave it there. We've got a few videos that we didn't quite get to last week for our RF viewers that I'll go to. But thank you again, Paul. I look forward to seeing the results from the next the winter field day and the next RD, etc., etc., etc. Hi.
I'll have to download the manual.
Oh, very good indeed. So that's fantastic. Thank you. Thanks, Paul. We'll bid 73 to our audience, and we'll catch you all next time. 73.
Good night.